Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive in 5 podcast. I am your host, Amy Tyler. Thank you for joining me for another episode whenever you are listening to this. First of all, I want to give you a heads up in case the sound isn't great on this. I am currently using a different sound software, like recording software. I'm not an expert on this stuff by any means, but I had to make a change to the software that I was using for recording a podcast, things I never thought I'd have to do when I did my banking grad scheme. But anyway, and I think it's okay. I think it's working, but I'm hoping there are no glitches. If I suddenly sound a bit confused, or if I suddenly go quiet, it's because I'm trying to figure out what's going on. But it seems to be working, so we will crack on. On the first day of my grad scheme, our CEO turned up to our induction event late. So we were doing this 2-day big induction event, and our CEO was meant to come and talk to us. You know, we were a bank of, 70,000 people, I think, worked for the bank. There were maybe 300 grads, all at this Novotel in Hammersmith. And our CEO was meant to turn up, and he was late for some reason. I imagine getting from the city to Hammersmith, quite hard work. He turned up late. Unfortunately, we were all very drunk by the time he showed up. They, for some reason, wouldn't let us have dinner, but would let us have the wine. So I remember very little of what he said, apart from one thing. And that one thing has stuck with me ever since. Now, I'm telling this story not because I want to remind myself of the worst hangover of my life. Do not get drunk and then have to do a full day induction event. Big mistake. But I'm telling you this because what he said is something that has stuck with me and is so, so powerful. He said, in life, to be successful, you need to be a palm tree, not an oak tree. Now, we all laughed when he said this because we were drunk, but he was right. This is true in all areas of life, but it's particularly true when it comes to weight loss. If you want to be successful when it comes to losing weight as a professional woman, it is the secret you need to know. You need to be flexible. And I am not saying that you need flexible hours or a flexible schedule or anything like that. I'm saying that you need to be flexible. You need to be bendy in your approach. Because the biggest problem that most professional women face when it comes to dieting is the fact that they're high achievers. The fact that you are somebody who works hard, who does well at your job, who is used to being successful, who likes getting things right. That is one of the reasons that weight loss is so much harder for you, because people like us, we like to get things right, and that makes us rigid, it makes us fixed, it makes us overly structured. The reality is our lives aren't flexible. Well, my life is now. I have a lot more flexibility in my life, being self-employed, but when you are employed by somebody else, when you work for a company, your life isn't flexible. My life in the corporate world was so unflexible. We have jobs that require, you to work at fixed times and travel at fixed times and turn on at certain times and turn off at certain times. And in reality, you have very little control over that. We have very little control over our calendars, very little control over what we do day to day. And for most high achievers, our response to that is to try to control things more. We dig our heels in. We get a little bit like my stubborn spaniel on his way back from his walk today, who did not want to come back. It was freezing cold and wet, and we had to turn around. We'd got to kind of halfway point of the walk, we were turning around, and he wanted to keep going, and he just dug his paws in. He dug himself in and was like, I am not moving. And that is how we tend to behave when it comes to dieting. The more life gets hard, the more we think that there's too much going on, the more we think we've just got to try harder, we've just got to stick to the diet at all costs. And what that tends to mean is we are either completely on it and everything's going great, or we fall off the wagon completely. We hit the fuck it button because we've dug our heels in so much that we just can't move forward. In reality, we need to be flexible. We need to be the palm tree, not the oak tree. In a storm, when it's windy, an oak tree is rigid. An oak tree doesn't bend. I'm currently sat at an oak desk, and I can tell you it does not bend no matter how much weight you put on it. Oak doesn't bend, it is rigid. That oak tree, when it gets windy, will get blown over. When the wind blows, that palm tree, it will bend, it will flex in the wind, it will move. We need to recognise that our lives aren't flexible. We don't have the benefit when you're a professional woman, when you're working in a corporate job, when you're working a job that has fixed hours, or even if it says it doesn't have fixed hours, really does. When you're working a job that requires you to be at your desk for 8 hours a day, you don't have flexibility. So you have to be flexible, and trying to be rigid, trying to be uber structured can actually make things harder. I'm not saying we don't want any structure at all. That's not how we do things at the TFP at all. But we want to be flexible. We want to be bendy rather than rigid. So How might that look? Well, rather than going into a week with a fixed mindset, thinking I must eat 1,500 calories every day, a flexible approach, a palm tree approach, might be to have 4 lower calorie days and 3 higher calorie days, and agree that you will flex those depending on what happens. You might go in with the intention of using your 3 higher days at a weekend, but then suddenly you get called into an unexpected client lunch, which happened to me on multiple occasions. And I'd think, oh crap, how am I going to stick to 1,500 calories when I'm going to go out for lunch where it's going to be at least 800 calories and I've already had 300 calories for my breakfast and oh my God, I'm going to go way over. Instead, I would say, right, I'm going to use my high calorie day today. I'm going to be flexible. A flexible approach might look like, rather than having a rigid mindset that you have to hit 10,000 steps or 7,000 steps or whatever it is every single day, actually aiming to do an average across the week, accounting for days when you can do more steps, like maybe when you're in the office and you can hit 4,000 steps on your commute without really trying, and days when you work from home when actually you are a little bit more sedentary. It might look like having a workout program for busy weeks and then another option that you can go to for quieter weeks. It might look like actually recognizing that when you have had a bit of a fall off the wagon moment where maybe you have eaten more calories than you intended or gone to town on some birthday cake in the office or whatever, rather than going, oh, I've screwed it because I can't stick to the diet, I need to give up. It might look like actually drawing a line under that and going back to what you were going to have for lunch and for dinner anyway, even if it takes you over your calories for the day. So have a think. Are you currently, in your approach to your diet, being an oak tree or are you being a palm tree? Are you being rigid and fixed in a rigid and fixed world and actually it's just not getting you anywhere? Or are you putting some flexibility in place to make sure that you can keep moving forward? Let me know if you have any questions on this episode. Obviously, give me a follow on social media at amytyler.tfp, and I will catch you next time.